Hey, Franchise Faith family, FranFaith. I am really excited today because I have a special guest in Red Boswell, the president of IFPG. The man has forgotten more about brokering and selling franchises than I'll probably ever know. And we're really excited to have Red on our podcast today. Red is a man of faith and a special friend to me. And we just love you, Red. I think everybody in the franchise community loves you. He's got an amazing number of social media followers, and we're just thrilled to have you on today.
Honored to be here, Todd. Thank you. And you are equally loved and respected, my brother.
Thank you. Hey, Red, I've always just been so amazed at how relational you are and how you're just friends with everybody and you just hug up and love up everybody, and just how you're constantly shooting stuff and sending it out, and it's so impressive. I'm just curious, how did you get your start? I mean, where did it all begin for you? I mean, I know you're this huge guru here today, but everybody's got to have their start. Where did you start?
Well, thank you, Todd. My spiritual gift is encouragement. I love encouraging and uplifting and giving back and just being a friend. On the DISC assessment, we're eyes, right? We value that relationship. My whole life, I was quite shy growing up, but my whole life I've been quite entrepreneurial too.
I find that extremely hard to believe.
You grow into your gifts sometimes. And so that entrepreneurship, though, has been there from very early, the adventuresome nature. And entrepreneurship has so much adventure to it. Every day is different and new, and you can't wait to see what you can accomplish. And, it's a Dr. Seuss story every day, it feels like, in the world of franchising and entrepreneurship. I guess from a franchise perspective, I got really into our world, and I consider our world that of helping people achieve their dreams through business ownership. Yeah. And when I was 21 years old in college, was kind of getting lost. I was trying to figure out my place in this world, where I was going to go, what I was going to do when I grew up. And so I went to a church in my local community because I was off at school, ran into a fella, became friends, and he recruited me into, yes, drum roll, he recruited me into Amway.
Yeah.
Well, some of the old timers like us, my friend, know what that means. So we were in the network marketing, multi-level marketing business. And that decision changed my life as much as really more than my salvation experience, because I was saved at a very young age. And I've always been this good boy for the most part. Never, don't have any drug story or living on the street stories or any of that. But I also didn't know the principles of success. I didn't understand how valuable it was to who you associated with. And the book, I never read a book at 21 unless they required it in a class, right? And between listening to and going to and digesting and good things. I had the Bible, certainly I read that growing up, but I didn't have the principles of success at all. And I had the hair down to my rear. I wish I had that still today, honestly. But I was just a hippie punk rocker dude and surfer skater, and I didn't have any direction. And that decision of getting into the books, tapes, functions that we had back in that Amway section of my life impacted me so much. And although I only did that less than 2 years, the passion of helping people achieve their dreams through business ownership has never left me. And I loved it so much and felt a little lost when I left that arena. A few years later, had started my 18th business, and came to sell it. Time to sell my business. It was doing $400,000, nothing big to brag about in a year. And I was netting half that. And I hired a fella to sell it for me. And a business broker, he's a smart guy, Christian fella I knew from church. And he looked at all that I had built and he said, Red, you need to take this national. You've got operations manuals. Nobody has an operations manual for a service business at a local level. You've got amazing marketing and websites and SEO and all these. And I was like, how do you take it national? I have no idea. He said, frankly, I don't either, but let's figure it out together. And he became my business coach. We studied licensing. We studied corporate loans and investor models. And then this thing called franchising. And I said, well, I'm not starting a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I laughed, and we said, well, let's figure out what it is. Went to some free courses that were out there, folks trying to sell us on their on their services. And I learned and learned and learned for 2 years. And we spent some money, spent a whole lot of time, made some mistakes. And ultimately, over 20 years ago, we launched a franchise opportunity. And I was really blessed, bro. I tell you what, I had an odd business in a market no one had ever heard of, in a category that was non-existent. And in 3.5 years, this is in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, in 3.5 years, I awarded 148 franchises in 28 states to 64 individuals.
Wow.
Just loved it to death. Now, the Great Recession hit me hard, affected a lot of us. I went through some ups and downs, learned a lot, lost a lot, made a lot, and hopefully gave God the glory through it all. But
Yeah. What space was that franchise in?
it was home services and a little bit of commercial services and pet related.
Okay.
I'm not too proud to say we scoop dog poop.
All very hot markets today.
It continues to grow, and
Yeah.
kind of created that sector. I've seen about a half dozen franchisors in that crazy category come and go that have poop scooping, cleaning up yards from dogs. Fortunately, when I did sell it back in 2010, it still carries on today. I'm so proud. I am friends with franchisees from 20 years plus, still on Facebook today. It's great.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned Amway. I grew up in West Michigan, which is where Amway was out of Grand Rapids, and the DeVos and Van Andel families were actually huge supporters of the community, but also my college, my undergraduate, Hope College. And so I was in Amway for a time early on as well, and I agree with you that the training and the culture and the fit and the drive and everything, it was an amazing organization, and still is, frankly. But
Still is.
yeah, that those families have blessed a lot of people.
You know, it's funny you bring those two founders up that are such legends. I left Amway in '93 probably, but 7 years later, I got married in 2000. Now, the Van Andels and the two founders of Amway, they bought an island in the British Virgin Islands, and that's where
Peter Island, right?
Peter Island.
Yeah.
I spent my honeymoon there. They didn't know me, and I've never met those guys, but it was such a legendary place, supposedly the most beautiful place on earth. I just had to spend my honeymoon there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Amazing. And I do recall your brand at the time, Pet Butler, and so you were very successful with that. So that's how you broke into the franchising gig. And it sounds like some of that base of the training and the motivation and stuff kind of brought you to a different level where your intentionality was at a different level, it sounds like, right?
It really was. Goal setting and reading and growing and learning and just the passion of a bucket list and
Right.
knowing how, that life is short and making an impact matters and understanding yourself. All those things have been so critical to my growing and my success in life. I'm so thankful that the Lord directed me to that church and that guy and that organization. And it was very impactful.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Great to hear. Well, so then you sold that company. Were you still working with them, or were you saying, all right, now what do I want to do when I grow up, or what was the next step?
Worked with them a good bit, helped them transition properly, and then ultimately went off to do independent franchise consulting, more of the help people franchise their business. And then I was doing a lot of marketing consulting, evaluating FDDs, or back then UFOCs, and just helping grow. I found it kind of makes me laugh because in that world of helping emerging brands or brands that want to franchise, helping them franchise, I found myself working with integrity. I found myself scaring most people off from franchising. So I would get a hot lead that wanted to franchise their business, and then I would give them the facts of life in a very transparent fashion of what it's going to take to truly succeed. 9 out of 10 said, "Ooh, that's not for me." And I started realizing, boy, I'm not very good at this thing of I was being too honest, And so my wife didn't appreciate the ups and downs of consulting. So ironically, David Omholt, I don't know if you know Dave Omholt, he founded way back, probably 40-ish years ago, founded the Entrepreneur Authority, excuse me. He's a friend here in the Dallas area. He suggested I talk to ERA, Expense Reduction Analyst. Now it's called ERA Group. And I became their Chief Growth Officer for all in North America. And that's when I got introduced to that broker world that we now live in so much.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I remember ERA. They're still strong and huge
Very.
worldwide now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, doing very well. In new ownership a year or two ago, and they're in over 70 countries now. I joined them when we were just at a fledgling 35 countries.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, and I remember even going way back in the early 90s, they were a license deal, right? You could license their system even before they were franchised.
Good memory, my friend. Yeah, yeah. I spent almost 3 years with them building up the brand in the U.S. and Canada, and really South America too. And then transitioned to Global Chief Development Officer at Action Coach, and helped to grow that brand globally. Became CEO of North America for a little bit. And when I left there, I wondered where the Lord had me. And I never thought I would go over to the supplier side of franchising. I thought, okay, I'm looking for a CDO or CEO role
Sure.
in franchising. That's where I felt called. And, God has other plans.
Yeah. Well, when we were selling all those units at Service Brands International, I remember Action Coach was one of our big competitors. We would lose a few sales to you, so you were the culprit, Red.
That was probably before me.
That's a nice thing about franchising is that we all love each other and compete so well, and everybody grows together.
We do.
So then, was that your last step then before the IFPG?
It was, Todd. And by the way, thanks for letting me be a little casual today.
Yeah.
I'm working from the home office. You don't see the IFPG guard behind me. We here in Dallas got a big 3 inches snowstorm and are trapped in our house. And so I'm in the home office, a little more casual than normal. Yeah, back in 7 years ago, I went to the IFA convention coming up here shortly, and I had about 8 interviews. I was coming down to the wire on a few opportunities where I would land, and it was interesting, and I think a total God thing, man. The day I left, within 24 hours of me leaving Action Coach, I hadn't told a soul. It was nobody knew. I got a text from a gentleman who runs a large franchise consulting and brokerage organization. And he said, "Hey, Red, it's so-and-so. I would like to talk to you about being the president of my company." And he had never texted me. I didn't know his number. And I thought, my goodness, this is such a blessing. I was so honored that he reached out. And again, nobody knew. He didn't know I had left. He thought he was trying to recruit me away. Now, I knew I was not going to go that direction. I knew that organization was not for me. It was the wrong culture. Nothing wrong with them, but I was also super honored, very encouraged. You know, when you leave an organization, sometimes you don't know where you're going to go. Right. I was waiting for guidance, and that was a sign, I felt. Well, I ended up not going there as I knew I wouldn't, but at the IFA convention, a couple months later, I was talking to some friends. Up walks Don Deskeski. Don is founder of IFPG.
Sure.
And I had been at the IFPG retreat #1. I had been a franchisor member for many years, had spoken on stages with Don, and he was a friend. He said, "Hey, I hear you've got some interviews. Anything I can do to help? Anybody you have questions about, or maybe I could introduce you to?" I said, "Don, you know what? I'm doing good, but man, we have to talk. I have a story for you." And I shared where I'd come from and some of the conversations I had had in the process, and the fact that this organization tried to make me be their president, and et cetera. And he just listened as a friend would do and encouraged me. We cheered each other away. And 4 days later, I'm at home. IFA's done. I'm still praying, trying to figure out where in the world I'm going to go. And he calls me up out of the blue. Now, Don had never called me on my phone either. So I had another friend that calls me or texts me for the first time. And similar, he says, "Red, I want to talk to you about being president of IFPG." And here I am, my mind's blown because I'm sitting there going, "Don, we spoke for 45 minutes at the Fran Jam. You never even told me you were looking for a president. What's going on, man?" And he cracks me up. He goes, "Red, I wasn't looking for a president. I wasn't looking for one at all. But after you talked to me and shared what you would do and your vision, and I realized you love IFPG. Everybody at IFPG loves you. You're the perfect guy to be president. Let's go." And I was like, I don't know this is a new thought for me, Don. I'm kind of a franchisor at heart. And he said, "You are made for this role," and no truer words have ever been spoken. I have never been happier for these past 7 years in the president role of IFPG.
And yeah, on some levels, the rest is history. You guys have been so unbelievably successful.
Thank you.
That you just have an amazing legacy there. You and Don.
Yeah.
So, in fact, how many, I guess, over that time period where I know you've had a lot of growth, and I mean, can you give us a sense of how many business placements do you have in a year?
Sure, over 2,000. So we work with give you some metrics. Back, you know, 7, 8 years ago, we were worth probably $1 million. I mean, we were barely breaking even. 7 months ago, we were sold for over $100 million. So we have grown exponentially in so many ways. We have 700 wonderful consultants. We work with 600 amazing franchisors. Those numbers haven't grown by a power of 100, but the deals that are happening and the quality of the consultants, the quality of the suppliers we work with, and the volume of the supplier network we have within IFPG has grown astronomically. It's beautiful to see, in franchising, you've heard this so many times. As a franchisor, I would rather have 100 Z's with 500 territories than 500 Z's.
Yeah, right. It's
Right?
so much more efficient,
Yeah.
right?
And that's who we are today compared to back then. We've grown our consultant base by tenfold in 7 years, but we've grown our deal count by 100-fold,
Sure.
therefore yielding so much more success for our franchisors who believe in us, the consultants who we work with, and the world at large. It's just beautiful to see the impact.
Yeah. Well, and we found when we were working with consultants that no consultant really wants to put an individual into a bad business. So a lot of times the consultants were very, very good at evaluating the businesses, the good from the bad, on an emerging franchisor. And we almost found it as a real positive because they were a first line of defense. They saw the good franchisors, and then that's what they wanted to put their candidates in. But any good consultant knows who the good guys are. I assume that continues today with your integrity and honesty. We talked about that early in the conversation.
Even more so than ever, the ways we have for candidates, for consultants, for franchisors to communicate, to share their ideal candidate avatar are second to none. The AI tools we've been able to integrate into the system has been a blessing for so many as well. It's been so cool to see.
Yeah, I know it's always tough to turn a candidate down, but if somebody's maybe not cut out for it, or if they're looking at a brand that has maybe got a little bit of an iffy background, you just have to be that. You have to.
Trusted advisor. That's what you are.
You have to be a trusted advisor, is exactly right.
And by the way, Todd, some folks listening may not understand. Franchise consultant is quite a broad title. There are the traditional consultants like I was back in the day. But when we say franchise consultant, the industry internally calls us brokers. We don't like that term because it's a bit cold and sterile. We do feel we are true consultants consulting a buyer through the process to find that ideal match. But some consultants call themselves a franchise advisor, franchise matchmaker, maybe a franchise coach, franchise consultant, franchise broker. They're all that same individual helping people find.
Maybe take us through that process a little bit. I know, back when we were selling a lot of franchises with, we've been involved with probably over 12 or 13 different franchisors. I know a lot of times you would talk to 100 candidates to maybe have one or two franchises, which is appropriate. You'd have to go through a lot of folks to find that right fit, right? And so I assume that's, close or reasonably close to what it is today. And so the consultants work very, very hard talking to a lot of people that they're guiding through at no charge to the client. That's still the way you guys work today. No charge to the client. But when they do make a match, it's sort of like a realtor, if you will, working on selling a house, then all of a sudden there's a commission.
It is.
On it.
It is.
Paid by the company they match with.
Yes, the most popular reason why franchisors work with consultants, and ultimately that franchise matchmaker or broker role has become the number one source of awarded franchises in North America, outside of organic, of course, is because the financial risk. You nailed it. Now, franchisors are going to spend a little bit of money to join an organization, maybe to market through that organization to the consultants. But compared to any other avenue other than internal referrals, which are few and far between, they're a blessing, but they're not the norm. So if you're out advertising, doing pay-per-click, the portals, SEO, all the other avenues to get those leads, it can be quite costly with zero guarantee of a return. Give you a real life story. In 2017, that's a while back now, actually, but not a lot has changed. 2017, I was, chief development officer, chief growth officer for the Americas for a global brand, ERA. I had a lot of avenues for leads. One of them was portals, very popular, the franchise gators of the world. And I was spending on 3 portals websites, spending about $50 per lead. Not that different than today. I was getting about 100 leads a month, 1,200 leads in that calendar year, $60,000 spent. And Rockstar Red, Mr. Salesman here, awarded 1 single franchise. That is a nightmare life. I did not enjoy my job speaking with, calling 8 times, texting 8 times, sending emails till they bought or die. I was on it, and yet I'm talking to people who have no money, who thought they applied for a job, who don't speak Spanish or speak English. It's just, it was no fun.
Yeah, and when you calculate that cost per lead, per the one sale,
Yeah.
it's extremely expensive relative to what is the average broker commission today?
Well, I'll answer it 2 ways. The average.
Let's just call it on a single deal too, not on a multiple.
Well, the rest of that too long of a story was I was awarding 1 out of 10 broker leads. 1 out of 1,200 versus 1 out of 10. I'll take 1 out of 10 all day long. The average single unit commission, so single unit, meaning they buy 1 franchise, territory, or location, is right about $30,000, Todd. So it's nothing to sneeze about. It's significant. The average franchise fee is just over $50,000 for a single. So, that's about 60% of the overall franchise fee. Right. And folks may say, oh my goodness, brokers have increased the franchise fees or they get so much of it. Think about what I shared earlier. I spent $60,000 with a global brand, highly respected, good validation, low investment. I spent $60,000 of my marketing budget to award 1 franchise, and I spent about 60 billion hours of my time following up with those leads.
Right.
So when folks think, well, I'll just drop $6,000 or $10,000 and sell a franchise, no. Unless you're McDonald's, who spends nothing, or Chick-fil-A, who spends nothing to get leads. The majority of us live in the real world and are spending an astronomical amount more than $30,000 to get 1 franchise.
Right. Well, and it's interesting that if I go back 10, 15, 20 years ago in the markets, it was about 25,000. So it hasn't, while inflation's been so rampant, the average fee hasn't gone up that much on a per deal basis. So.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
My Red's rule, as I call it, is if you look at the last 30 years or so, the commissions have gone up about $700 a year.
Okay.
So they've followed inflation, perhaps. It's not a whole lot, but they are in demand, and hot leads are in demand. The rest of the story too, Todd, on single unit versus multi-unit. A lot of buyers, about half of buyers are buying multi-unit opportunities, especially in the services sector, which certainly is a mainstay for consultants. Astronomically less on the commission. So average commission for that second unit is more in the 14,000 range. 13,000 is average for a third unit. So 57 on a 3-pack. Still, it's significant.
Yeah. So, and then again, for our folks that are watching this, a 3-pack is typically an agreement to buy 3 territories, but they have a timeline to be able to open 2 and 3, and they want a market area so that they have a little bit of wherewithal. So the fee overall is probably less on a 3-pack deal as well.
The franchise fee, it's usually a 20% discount.
Yeah,
typically,
right.
A little bit.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, so when you say 2,000 units, how many companies is that spread across? How many brands or emerging brands?
About 600 franchisors. So if you did some easy math, if we did 200 a month, which is probably pretty close to accurate. I don't have perfect numbers since our consultants have a lot of libertarian freedom. They don't have to report their deals, nor the consultants. But that would be 4 deals per ZOR average. We have some ZORs, let's be real, it's the real world. Some ZORs shouldn't be awarding franchises and don't, and they do 0. And then I have ZORs that are doing 40 plus in a year with us. So it's all over the place.
Okay. And then what would you guess the breakdown is between an emerging brand versus a mature brand? Do you have a breakdown like that?
On awarded franchises in a calendar year?
Like who's growing? Is it all the emerging brands, or are there just a lot of mature brands that are continuing to be more successful?
The more mature, the more proven, the lower the risk.
Yeah.
The easier it is to award a franchise, and the less they have to invest if they have a profitable model with a good item 19 and a good system. And so, yeah, it is harder on the emerging brand as a general rule, just because chicken and the egg. Leads follow deals, but I got to get leads to get deals. And so how do we do that? Well, you have to have your house in order, good item 19, good sales team or a franchise development team, transparent process, clear financials, great validation, even though if you just have one or two, it's hard to have great validation across the board amongst a lot of Z's.
Yeah.
And by the way, franchisee, Z, franchisor, Zor. We shorten things in this world a lot.
Yep. And just like anything else, I would guess the best franchisors are the ones that are focused on franchisee profitability.
Amen. That it should be any franchisor's number one focus is unit level economics. You get that figured out, you're going to award franchises to the cows come home,
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. And to your question earlier, didn't mean to dodge it around emerging brands. Emerging brands, sub 20 units. I have them that do 20 in 3 months, and I have them that do 20 never. But if I had to say an average 20 units or less brand, how many do they do in their first year with us? Well, any year with us, they get less than 20 brands. It's 1 or 2 on average. But again, I have them that have their house in order and a great opportunity. That'll do a whole lot more. And on the flip side, you got those amazing brands with 1,000 units who do 0 because they don't have their unit level economics and they have bad validation and their item 19 is a lie or it's in the gutter. So we have it both ends.
So word on profitability gets around real quick, doesn't it, among the consultants?
Among the consultants, among the franchisees, they talk just like consultants talk. And our consultants are not going to send great candidates because these are their babies. Their blood, sweat, and tears are invested into their candidates. They've spent thousands and thousands to get that lead. And this is how they put food on the table. So they're going to give it to the brands they know they can trust. And what is a brand? A brand is people. So they're giving it their baby candidate to a brand, a person they believe in. They know, they like, they trust, and ultimately are changing lives through franchising because of it.
Yep. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, you've mentioned several times that you had it was a God thing that he called, or that it was really the Lord's leading to do this. It just sounds like faith is integrated through everything you do, Red. Talk to us a little bit about that. What do you believe? And do you believe in your heart? Talk to us about your faith.
I like that word integration, Todd. So, we hear oftentimes people say work-life balance. You need work-life balance. Not a fan of that, honestly. Work-life integration, hey, we're getting there. I like that work-life integration. I am my work, and my work is who I am, but I'm much more than my work. Well, I believe in taking it one step farther, work-life harmony. What I do, what I'm called to do in my occupation, in the workplace, and who I am as a human being, as a father, as a Christian, they are harmonious. I can't take one outside the other. They're poured into the same cup, if you will, and that's who I am. My work is ministry and my ministry is work and vice versa. So I love what I do. And I think any Christian should find that their life and their work should also be their ministry. And the two can't be taken apart because it's who we are. Who I am is probably too transparent. I'm real, I'm honest, I'm open, and I just can't not be. I can't sleep at night if I don't. I've turned more people away that shouldn't be a consultant with us. I just spent, right before this call, I spent an hour with a guy who's an emerging brand, has 0 franchises, and boy, he's got some problems and he needs to understand the facts of life. And I may have scared the bejeebers out of him because he's dropped $100,000 to become a franchisor already, but he's not ready, And I could have closed him, but that's not who I am. That's not who the Lord called us to be. Yeah, I'm raised Southern Baptist in a many-generation family, but I don't, I still remember, I don't know why this comes to mind. I chase rabbits a lot here, ADHD, I guess, but in 7th grade, first day of school, I'm going to school, and my sisters are talking about haircuts or something, and my mom's dropping them off. I go, Mom, for Christmas this year, now this is August. Now I'm already thinking Christmas presents, but I said, for Christmas this year, I want to not get a haircut. She's like, Red, we've never required you get a haircut. We don't tell you how your hair has to be. Well, I always thought they did. They're my parents. I listened to everything they said. They told them how to cut my hair, and that was the light bulb. So I didn't get a haircut other than shaving the side of my head and a mohawk probably for 7 years, and I look like a hellion. I look like, when I was in Motley Crue or something, or in a punk rock band. But that was my ministry too. I seriously was out there. I was a Stryper fan, Christian, heavy metal. So I was at kind of that mindset. I was a weirdo at my school and anywhere else, because who looks like that and doesn't do all those bad things that people that look like that do? And so that's still me today. I'm out there. I'll be 55 in about a week. I still like to skateboard and surf and have fun, and I still listen to heavy metal and punk rock. And I'm a kid at heart, 17 at heart, but the Lord, there's no sinning there. He loves me, even though I'm a kid at heart. So that's who I am, and I still love building businesses and the adventure that comes with it. And I find that the ministry He's called me to be is in this role. Most people I talk to don't know I'm a Christian. They just know I tell the truth. I live honestly. I care about their success, and I'm real. And when it comes time and they're convicted and they want to know more about who are you, why do you do this, then they can ask. But I'm not some proselytizing out there and scaring people off. Frankly, I'd lose my job if I did.
Sure. So it's more of being kind of a wild man, and being actually kind of appealing on a lot of levels, because you are having fun and having joy and putting stuff out there. But it's living your faith, not necessarily just talking your faith.
I do a lot less talking. I mean, let the living do the talking, frankly.
The testimony is through the living, which is really great. You're leaning into your calling, which is awesome, because you're also applying your faith where your integrity and your honesty, does show through. So that's really encouraging. It's really great.
Thank you. It's the only way I could be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Red, I know when we started talking a few years back, and you've been such a great encourager on the FranFaith side, and jumped right in and helped with co-founding and help move that initiative along, and we just appreciate that. I know God will bless your efforts and our efforts, and as we continue to build this community. And the community itself is just really to love up others. I mean, that's really our calling, is to pull people that are in franchising, franchisor, franchisee, supplier, and pull them together in a community and love them up. If people are hurting, we now have a new thing that we're just starting, where you can go on to our app, the Circles app, and join the community. And then if you have a prayer request, you can go on there, and then the folks in the community will be able to pray for all the prayer requests that are on there. And so,
Todd, how many members do we have now in FranFaith?
We're just over 380.
That's amazing.
Now, just in 6 months, and we'll probably break the 500 mark by convention, which was our goal. So
that's a BHAG. That's a big, hairy, audacious goal. Yeah. You would have told us that a year ago, that we want to have 500 by IFA convention in less than a year. We would have laughed, man. But it's beyond us.
Well, the other thing that's exciting, just since we're here on and talking with a co-founder, we had our first mastermind group that met last week. We have about 10 people, in a mastermind. And one of our other goals is to create 8 to 10 full mastermind groups and have 100 folks participating in that. And what that simply is meeting one time a month for 90 minutes with a group that they talk a little bit, have a kind of a central theme on Bible study, but then they also talk about the business problem, and then somebody's on the hot seat with their issue once a month. And so if you go through that group of 10, through the year, you'll have 1 month where you're on the hot seat. But you just get a little closer to folks. You talk a little bit of faith, talk a little bit of business. And so these mastermind groups are going to be really exciting too. And so that's one of the tools of our ministry that we're building this year in 2026.
Todd, that's the church, buddy.
I know. It's basically the church, a church community among franchise business leaders, which really does make it exciting. So
it does.
If you happen to get to the end of this video, we want to make sure you go and either like our Facebook page, or reshare it, or repost it, or join on the Circles app, or any of the social media that we're on.
And Todd, it's free to join. Is that right?
Right now, it's free to join. This first year, our company, we're just paying for everything. All the platforms and everything, we're paying for it. We likely will in year 2 start some sort of a contribution level toward, and it won't be very large, but just to kind of cover the costs and continue to grow the ministry.
Yeah.
Now that we've built our base and kind of our pattern, and our content is building and sending it out, and once we get to 500, we would like to start promoting it a little bit more among the community on Facebook and LinkedIn and whatnot, and pay for some advertising, and then continue to put more content out, have more and more guest speakers, and
Nice.
so we want to keep building it. And one day we might get up to over 27,000 followers, like you, Red, my good friend.
Dude, at this pace, you'll be there in no time. Next convention, 13 months away.
Right. God willing. So, hey, Red, thank you so much for spending time with us and with our FranFaith community. We just love you so much, and we appreciate you.
You're the man, Todd. Thank you. Appreciate you spearheading this revival of sorts, this real cool undertaking. So proud.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of it. Have a great day.
Thanks, bro. You too.